Okay, take out my bag of tricks. Just note that this will probably be one of the very few times that you see me in an apron. I'm never in the kitchen, rightfully so, but I felt that this was an occasion for me to put it on. So whenever my husband Massimo is asked, what would you bring on a deserted island? He always says, tortellini. For those of you who don't know, tortellini are a handmade egg pasta filled with a mixture of mortadella, veal, prosciutto, and Parmigiano Reggiano. Every family in Modena has their own secret recipe for tortellini passed on from generation to generation. And no matter how good the tortellini are in any restaurant, even Osteria Francescana, a true Modenese will always say, they're pretty good, these tortellini, but they're not as good as my mother's. But why are tortellini so sacred? As an American, I've been asking myself this question for at least 23 years since I moved to Modena. I didn't really get why tortellini were such a big deal. And every time I asked people, I never got a straight answer. I always got a story. Most of the time, that story began in the family kitchen, under the table, where boys and girls would be hiding and waiting patiently for their aunts, their grandmothers, their mothers to be distracted so they could steal a couple tortellini from the kitchen table. Because making tortellini is never a solitary act. It is always a communal one, and people are always making tortellini around the biggest table in the kitchen. First of all, because when the dough is rolled out, there's an urgency. It has to be folded, cut and folded, and turned into tortellini before it dries out. Secondly, the more people there are, the more tortellini there will be. And thirdly, there's nothing like a tortellini circle for catching up on gossip. 2 years ago, an old friend of Massimo named Silvia Panini came to us with an idea. She said, what would you think about teaching young teens with special needs how to make tortellini? From making the dough, to folding the tortellini, to putting them in the boxes. One of the most interesting things about her idea and what caught our attention was the who. Who would be teaching these children how to make tortellini? She came up with the most authoritative and knowledgeable of teachers, the Resdore. Resdore is not an English word, it's not even an Italian word, so what is a Resdore? Or who are the Resdore? They really are the heart and soul of the Italian kitchen, the home and the family. They are the mothers, the grandmothers, and the aunts who prepare handmade pasta for their families. They know the recipe by heart. More importantly, they know it by their hands, because making tortellini is all about the gesture. Handmade egg pasta is synonymous with Emilia-Romagna. It is a difficult skill, but is one that can be learned with practice, with lots and lots and lots of practice. To be honest, nowadays, most Modenese don't make tortellini anymore. They're buying it in the stores, and there are less and less Resdore. Many of them are retired, and soon they will be extinct. For this project, we needed them. We needed women with a lifetime of experience, with strong arms to roll out the dough, and even stronger personalities to teach these children how to make tortellini correctly. No compromises allowed. After speaking with Silvia, Massimo said to me, just imagine how amazing it would be for Charlie to learn how to make tortellini. Charlie is our 17-year-old son who has special needs. Charlie plays soccer, he plays volleyball, he sings and dances, he speaks Italian, he speaks English, but Charlie didn't know how to make pasta. So we didn't hesitate one moment to embrace this project and support it in any way we could. Tortellante began with 10 kids, boys, from the age of 14 to 20, each with an educator and a res daughter by their side, and at the end of the 2-hour tortellini session, the kids divided up all the tortellini they had made, and they brought the container home to their families. Week after week, the tortellini sessions gained momentum. More kids joined, and the kids made more and better tortellini. Maybe because they were looking forward to eating those tortellini for dinner. The fact that they could bring something home, something that they had made, really changed everything. The kids became protagonists in their own families. They were the ones bringing home dinner. For the families, tortellini night became an opportunity to invite friends over, to invite family, to celebrate, to sit around the table and be proud of what their children had made. For the res daughter, it was the chance they had been waiting for to share their knowledge and see it being put into practice. Most teenagers, especially teenage boys, are not interested in learning how to make tortellini from their grandmothers. But not only were these kids interested, they were good at it. And they made better and better tortellini. As they made better tortellini, they began to understand the value of making something and sharing it with others. Soon it became obvious that tortellante was much more than an after-school activity. Autistic kids are often considered antisocial. But it's false to think that they do not want to socialize. It's just that they don't have the skill set to be able to do it easily. Everyone wants to be part of a group, and everyone wants to be with others. So Tortellante provided a safe and predictable environment that allowed for easy socialization with different members of society, different generations, not just teachers or parents, different adults and peers. But Tortellante provided not only recreational rewards, but therapeutic ones. A stress study index was conducted on the families before we began the project. Before we began the project, 11 out of 20 families suffered from pathological stress. After the first year, the same study was done on the same families, and 6 out of 20 were suffering from pathological stress. What does that mean? It meant that the parents were seeing their children in a new light. They were beginning to imagine a future for their children. Massimo and I also began to see Tortellante not only as a recreational activity, but maybe a life project. Maybe this activity could be the bridge between school and the real life. A job opportunity, maybe even a business. What if we opened a Tortellante pasta lab and a tortellini shop run by special young adults? Actually, until 2014, autism was only recognized as an infantile condition in Italy. So that meant that after the age of 18, a person wasn't autistic anymore. It was put into a generic group with schizophrenics and other disabilities. Today, the law has changed, and so has the perception of autism. Today, we envision Tortellante as a way to empower young adults with special needs, to give them the tools to create their own future, a future as independent as possible, a future in which they can make a contribution to society. Even the town council has recognized the potential of this project. They've realized that the beneficiaries are not only the young teens, they are also the families and the retirement community of Resdore and the town at large. Already, there are more requests to buy tortellini than we will ever be able to fulfill. Food can be a powerful tool for change. This is just one example. I have a short video, and I'd like to show you another example, something we've been working on.
Food for Soul is a non-profit organization founded by Chef Massimo Bottura and Lara Gilmore. Food for Soul works together with communities so they can fight against food waste through social inclusion. We believe that we're not a charity, we're a cultural project because we want to change the mindset of people, not only regarding food waste and what food waste is. We can use that resource to transform it. And how do we do that? It's to connect in different dots. So one of these dots is chefs. We invite chefs to collaborate in our projects, to come one day and cook together with the staff, with our staff in different projects, in order to create new recipes, new ways of addressing these ingredients, of seeing them.
I think the most important message of this project is involving the chef, their creativity, their time, and their knowledge. Because fighting waste, you need experience, you need people, chefs. They're like taking these ordinary ingredients and create extraordinary meals.
We go and speak with designers and architects and artists that transform the spaces to be functional but also beautiful. And we don't think this is something shallow, but through all our projects we have experienced how this can have a big impact in people's life and the value that they see that the society are given to them.
A warm and comfortable place for the homeless, and good design is incredibly smart, and one that we were definitely keen to be involved with. First and foremost, we wanted to make a place where people would feel comfortable and cared for.
Volunteers serve at the table. We believe that the value of hospitality can change also the way we relate to the others, and a lot of that is with people in need. So instead of having a wall or a glass and serving someone through that, we go to the tables, volunteers serve at the tables and say to someone, "Hi, how was your day?" And even recognize it by name. The fact of being recognized and having human contact through hospitality comes a lot from the idea of Osteria Francescana, which Massimo and Lara founded more than 20 years ago.
Allora questo luogo deve diventare un luogo di cultura. L'accoglienza si fa cultura. E la cultura dove al primo posto ci sta l'attenzione al povero, al primo posto ci sta l'inclusione sociale dei poveri.
Do we need another soup kitchen? No. But we need a space that change the perspective of the whole area where it is located, through his incredible positive message of inclusion. In a world in which they build walls, we break walls and we say, welcome, come here. So that's how we rebuild the dignity of the people.
Food for Soul. We started with a simple idea, one that turned out to have a much bigger impact than we could have ever imagined. When Feed the Planet was announced at the 2015 Expo theme, We created these community kitchens in an abandoned theater in a neglected neighborhood of Milan to feed the planet in our own way. And we named the project the Refettorio Ambrosiano. I forgot to note, I changed aprons. Massimo called on his friends to cook with the surplus from Expo. They made soups, meatballs, tons of ice cream, with everything they found in the walk-in refrigerator, as well as all the scraps, the peels, and anything edible that often gets thrown away. These chefs adapted and applied their culinary skills to transform ordinary ingredients into extraordinary meals. But to be perfectly honest, Milano was an experiment. We had no idea what we were doing. We had never created a soup kitchen, nor had we ever cooked with surplus from a supermarket. All we could do was apply what we had learned from our 22 years at Osteria Francescana about hospitality, about the intrinsic value of beauty, and about the importance of sharing a meal. The thing is, at the end of 6 months of Expo, what we realized is that the Refettorio Ambrosiano didn't need us anymore. It didn't need Massimo Bottura, and it didn't need the chefs who had passed through there. It had taken on a life of its own. The kitchen staff had accumulated recipes from over 65 chefs. They had tons of ways of dealing with brown bananas, wilted vegetables, mixed meat. They knew how to use an ice cream maker, and they could turn all kinds of mature fruit into amazing sorbets. The neighborhood volunteers, who in the very beginning, before we opened our doors, were protesting because they did not want this kitchen in their neighborhood. They were the ones who 6 months later were opening up the doors for children and elderly on their own time. Actually, the Refettorio Ambrosiano was no longer our project, but it belonged to the neighborhood. With or without us, it would be serving our homeless guests day after day. So looking for the solutions to fight food waste, we stumbled upon a way to have a much wider impact on the community. We understood that making a meal in a beautiful setting can have a big impact. How could we make more places like these accessible to more people? And that's when we founded Food for Soul, April 2016. The idea was to empower communities to fight food waste and also to fight against social inclusion. Since then, we've opened up kitchens in Rio, Bologna, Modena, and London. They are sustainable and welcoming guests daily. But we asked ourselves, how can we engage the larger public, all of you, in fighting food waste, even at home? And the answer was right before our eyes. Bread is gold. At the Refettorio Ambrosiano, the chefs who came through not only cooked, but they took the time to write down the recipes. Writing down recipes from chefs, especially great chefs, is one of the hardest things that you can get them to do, believe me. We collected the recipes, we translated them, and we put together in a cookbook. Bread is Gold is coming out on November 6th, and we're all very excited about it. But the good thing about this cookbook, the good thing about Bread is Gold, is you don't have to be a professional chef to make these recipes. These are recipes that can be cooked by anyone, anywhere, at home, in a cafeteria, in a restaurant. They can be cooked by any cook, even on the tightest budget. These are recipes that do not require fancy equipment. They just require time, energy, and a little bit of creativity. We found that cooking with ingredients that otherwise would have been wasted draws out the resourcefulness in a cook, in any cook. These recipes were made for real people and written down for home cooks. So the quantities can be doubled, they can be tripled, they can be reduced by 2. It won't change the recipe that much. The most important thing is we want whoever's cooking to get involved. Bread is Gold is testimony that recipes can change the way you look at the world. But if you're looking only for a cookbook with recipes, this might not be the book for you. Because Bread is Gold is a book about ideas. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of recipes. There are recipes for meatballs, gazpachos, pastas, hamburgers, tons of poached eggs, and bread pudding. There's ice cream recipes, there's recipes for brown bananas, but the point is, every single meatball in that book is different. Let me give you some examples. Poached eggs. My dear friend, Mauro Colagreco, made poached eggs. He put his poached egg in a beautiful potato basket, like a nest, and the kids who ate it that day for lunch are still talking about it. They were crazy about the idea of a poached egg returning to its beautiful nest. Christina Bowerman served poached eggs with a carrot puree and toasted millet. Luca Fantine, this is Andoni, served them with migas. Luca Fantine made one of the craziest recipes: poached eggs, pasta, potatoes, smoked prosciutto, broccoli, but it was delicious, and it worked. Gazpachos. Gazpachos, on the other hand, changed with the seasons. So Daniel Hum made a strawberry gazpacho because it was the end of May. Juan Roca made a Spanish chamorro traditional recipe in July, the bottom. And Matias Perdomo made one in the late summer with watermelon. Mark Moriarty, don't have the picture here, made one with roasted vegetables in the fall. Bread puddings, we found, come in all shapes and sizes. Narisara made a pan perdu with chocolate milk. Yannick Eleno served his with cantaloupe sorbet and tropical fruit. Daniel Hum made a classic American one with vanilla, ice cream, and cherry sauce. The Amo School added coconut. Virgilio Martinez added cinnamon, raisins, and stewed fruit. And Mario Batali made his with chocolate almond panettone. Really, really delicious. But regardless of all the surplus food that was available daily, some chefs cheated. They cheated by bringing ingredients from their own country. Even the MSA, the Culinary Arts Academy, cheated. But how can you blame them? This was part of how much chefs cared to share their own cultural identity with the people in the soup kitchen. The MSA brought Turkish, smoked yogurt, salep, and a special tool for making, and I'll get this wrong, damire tatalisi. They made a great feast. There were vegetables, chilled soup, meatballs, and a ton of desserts. The Canadians, of course, brought maple syrup. Mauro Uliassi, who lives on the Adriatic Sea, he brought squid. Enrico Chirea brought lobster from his 3 Michelin star restaurant. Matt Orlando brought leeks that he had been fermenting for months. Rudolfo Goodsman brought wood from the Chilean forest to smoke everything, and he almost burned down the building. Andreas Caminada brought tons of chocolates, pastries, cakes, but after all, he is Swiss. Jordi Rocca stuffed really good chocolate into Juan Rocca's suitcase, and Juan made exceptional chocolate ice cream. Alain Ducasse didn't bring anything. He just got lucky, because on that hot day in July, there was goat's milk cheese and fresh goat's milk, and we couldn't have planned it better. He was very impressed. Renee brought rose blossoms from Denmark, and Massimo brought balsamic vinegar from Modena for everyone to use. But the chefs not only brought ingredients, they brought their staff. Sometimes it was 1 sous chef, sometimes it was 4, sometimes it was half a culinary school. The more the merrier, because it was a way of sharing the experience and also sharing a message. But what each chef really brought to the Refettorio Ambrosiano was an open mind, a positive attitude, and a desire to make the best possible meal with what they had available. So I have to thank you. Thank you to the MSA. Thank you to Mauro Colagreco. And thank you to all the chefs who shared their time, their energy, their recipes, but most of all, their support. I want everyone to know that the proceeds of Food for Soul, the proceeds of Bread is Gold, go to Food for Soul, to opening up more community kitchens around the world. Bread is Gold really could have been called the Make Do Cookbook, or Get On With It and Get Dinner on the Table. Every single meatball, poached egg, and bread pudding in this book is unique, like the tortellini made from the tortellini teens. Who knows? Maybe those teens someday will become the unexpected heroes, saving the Modenese handmade pasta tradition from extinction. And maybe all these random recipes made from surplus food will become new traditions. On Massimo's deserted island, tortellini could keep everyone well-fed and very happy. On an island like Modena, tortellante could be the instrument to keep families, traditions, and communities united, just like the refettorios in Milan, Rio, and London. There's extinction and there's survival. It's not about making the perfect tortellini or serving a meal to those in need, because it's not really even about making food or eating food. It's about how we make food, and it's about how we eat food. It's about who we make the food with and who we eat it with. Thank you.